welcome to episode 8 of the Terra Parva show. I'm your host, Chase Jennings, and today is going to be all about Chytrid. Now, let me preface this by saying that quarantining is a great way to prevent the spread of a lot of pathogens, but it will not save your butt when it comes to Chytrid. And if you thought that quarantining your frogs for 3, 6, 8, 10 months a year was going to save you from it, you're dead wrong. And let me explain it to you. Now, I'm not saying not to quarantine your animals. You always should quarantine new animals. But just because they're quarantined and seem like they're fine for even months or a year does not mean they're free of infection. Let's get into this. So what is Chytrid? It's typically going to be described as two different types of fungus. These are two species, okay? One is bee sow, and that is going to be Bacteriococcidium salamandrivorans. And then we also have BD, the most common between the two, Bacteriococcidium dendrobattatus. Now, dendrobattatus, this is something that is going to be affecting mainly frogs, and salamandrivorans is going to be affecting primarily salamanders. And they also display very differently too. BD can be very asymptomatic a lot of the time, whereas when you look at bee sow, it's going to be something that is going to typically necrotize the tissue, like the tissue will be rotting on the animal. It's very, very nasty. It's a very nasty fungus. So we're going to primarily focus on BD. Now, BD produces these zoospores, and these zoospores are really interesting because they have flagellum, and these flagellum, like a little tail on them, it can actually wiggle and propel them through water sources. So this allows them to be mobile. So they can very easily travel through whether it be water droplets or water that you have tadpoles in, or even a misting system. Yes, they can actually travel into your reservoir and spread throughout your tanks through your misting system. They can also hitch a ride on tools. They can hitch a ride on plants. If you are getting cuttings from someone that has an infected tank, you can infect your tank with those. And they can also hitch a ride on your hands as well. Scary enough, they can also hitch a ride on mites and on fruit flies too, that are transversing from one tank to another one. So what do these zoospores do? Well, once they find their host, once they come in contact with the skin of the frog, they'll actually penetrate a skin cell of the frog, and then they will become a cyst. They will encase themselves in that keratinized tissue, and they will actually eventually hijack that cell and then start producing more zoospores. And each one of those cells can produce dozens of zoospores. And then these are released, and they can infect other cells on that animal. So eventually the zoospores, this fungus will take over the skin of the animal. Or again, they can infect other animals in the tank, or be released into the environment and then get into other tanks. Now, the thing about Chytrid is it does not itself kill the animals. It affects the function of the skin of the animals, which for amphibians, their skin is one of the most important organs. It is what allows for the transport of oxygen. It is what allows for the transport of water. And those are the two most important things for the survival of those amphibians. So as the skin becomes more and more compromised over time, it becomes to where if there is some type of immunosuppression, if the immune system of those animals is affected, let's say it gets stressed out through shipping, that's a huge one, where people think, oh, my frog is fine, it's healthy, and the customer gets it and it's dead the next day. Well, people a lot of times call it shipping stress, but it actually could have had Chytrid. Could have, not necessarily does, but could have. That's why it's important to test them. But anyways, typically this is something, it's a fungus that is kind of brilliantly evolved over time, not to kill its host, but to spread as much as possible. You can have frogs that have been carriers of Chytrid for months or even years without showing any symptoms. And really, they just show symptoms days to maybe a couple weeks before finally succumbing to it and dying. Otherwise, they can appear to be relatively healthy. Now, again, shipping stress can suppress the immune system of these animals and cause BD to eventually kill them. Or it can also be through heat stress. Now, I say heat stress, if you get to about 86, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, that will actually kill off the fungus itself. But again, any kind of stress, it could be cold stress, it could be a lack of humidity, that frog's starting to dry out. Anything that stresses that frog out can allow its immune system to essentially fail under pressure of BD. And it's not really the BD itself that kills it, it's rather typically heart failure. The frog's heart just can't take it anymore because its system is so compromised at that point. So that's really how Chytrid kills the frogs. So with that being said, again, if you're quarantining something for 6, 8, 10, 12 months, and then you release it into the general population, you could very well be releasing a carrier that's then going to infect your other frogs. And somebody's entire collection could be infected with BD, and they have frogs that get stressed out, die every now and then. They have no idea why, but the rest of them seem perfectly healthy. This is why it's so important to also test your collection. Now, again, we've talked about Chytrid and what it does. I mean, these zoospores, again, they'll infect the skin cells, they'll hijack them, they'll start producing a lot more zoospores. We need to talk about how to kill it. That's the really important thing here, because we know it's in the industry. We know it's all over the place. There is a lot higher risk now than ever before of accidentally getting an animal that may seem healthy but may be infected with it. And so, first of all, there is qPCR. If you go to a laboratory like REL Labs to test, you have to take a swab, send it into the laboratory, test, and see if it has Chytrid. But even if it does, you're still going to have to treat it. Now, there's two ways to kill Chytrid when it is in the animal itself. Luckily, these zoospores are pretty fragile. And what that means is that on surfaces, if you spray the surfaces down with alcohol, alcohol will kill it. Allowing these surfaces to dry out for a couple days will kill the zoospores. UV light will kill the zoospores. Even a chlorine solution will kill the zoospores. The thing about it is we're trying to save the animals without using a method that would also kill them, because all these methods would typically also kill the animals. A lot of people are turning toward a itraconazole protocol. And itraconazole is an antifungal. And what people are doing is they're diluting it in distilled water and then giving the animals a bath. Now, I am not a veterinarian. I don't have a veterinarian's license, so I am not giving you veterinary advice. But if you would like to, you can always Google it, look up online how to do this itraconazole protocol. And that's what a lot of people seem to be using in this hobby, and just essentially treating every frog they get as being infected already with BD, and therefore they treat all those animals just like they would a wild-caught frog for parasites or anything else. Pre-treatment just in case it has it. Otherwise, you can always test, but again, if you test and find out it has it, you're still going to need to treat it. If you do find out that your frogs have Chytrid, you're also going to have to sanitize your vivarium. And the easiest way, it seems, is to heat treat it. And that's raising the temperature to at least 90 degrees for at least 24 hours. Now, unfortunately, that will also kill some tropical plants. So you'll need to perhaps chemically treat those. A lot of people are using different solutions to do that. For instance, F10. People are using alcohol, and people are also using dilutions of either chlorine, or which I'm not really a big fan of, chlorine or bleach. But anyways, guys, so there's a lot of ways that you can treat it. The zoospores are typically pretty easy to kill. Just the problem is they spread so incredibly easily. I mean, just one person will have unfortunately, a group of frogs, and they sell 5 of those frogs to 5 different people, and all of a sudden you have 5 different people's collections that are now infected with them. So anyways, guys, I hope that y'all learned some things today. Please be careful. Do quarantine your animals, but don't think just because you quarantine them that you're safe. Because there are animals that have persisted again for months or even years infected with Chytrid and have infected many others. And people had no idea. People have literally gotten tests that came back positive for Chytrid and thought, oh, I've quarantined it for months. It's perfectly healthy. It's a false positive, and they're wrong. They're dead wrong. It was actually a positive test. And they just assumed because there was no symptoms that it was perfectly fine. That's really the silent killer here in our industry. It is that BD is most of the time asymptomatic. Tadpoles can be infected. Frogs can be infected. It can even be on eggs. And you just really don't know it until the immune system of that animal becomes compromised. And all of a sudden, again, a few days before it dies, it starts finally showing symptoms. But let's try to solve this issue that we have with frogs just mysteriously dying. Let's start testing. Let's start treating. Let's start taking some responsibility and biosecurity here and work together to stop the spread of this fungus. Anyways, if y'all have any questions, feel free to email me as always. And I hope y'all have a great day. I will look forward to talking to y'all on the next one. Bye for now.